folks need heroes, Chief. Get woke.
John 117 is the hero of the Halo series. A super soldier wrapped in robotic armor, he is the last of his kind as the Halo Combat Evolved manual describes. The awe of every soldier around him. This is the character of which the player takes as their persona, an unstoppable force of humanity serving only the UNSC. His minimal personality is only visible through his interactions with others. The books show us the backstory. He was originally a civilian boy of 6 when he was selected among 74 others for the secret program Spartan-ii and forcibly inducted, that is, abducted, into it. Dr. Halsey had meticulously constructed the training environment for the Spartan-IIs, based on the training of the original warriors of Sparta. The training would be extremely strenuous for their age, comparable to that of Marine training, with the noted exception that she was not working with volunteers. Any Spartan who resisted would be struck with an electric baton, as John was before he learned to follow orders. What necessitated such a violation of human rights was the growing rebel threat. For decades, certain groups in the outer colonies had desired that their governments be split off from the UNSC, a belief that led them to violence and terrorism. This threat had led Dr. Halsey to conceive of a revamped version of the earlier Spartan project, later referred to as the Spartan-I program, using superior augmentations at the onset of puberty as opposed to those given to the full-grown Marines of the Spartan-I program. That the Spartan-II program required the abduction of children was an unfortunate necessity for the good of the UNSC in Halsey's mind. This is not intended to be a criticism of UNSC policies, though I do have a problem with them. This is intended to show that although John has done extraordinary things, it is not his own doing. John was just reacting to forces beyond his control, eventually transforming into a brainwashed tool of the UNSC. Compare this with Avery Johnson. He spent his childhood as a typical civilian, living with his aunt as the result of a custody dispute when he was 6 years old. Much like John, he later couldn't remember much about his previous life. However, his new life with his aunt was much more pleasant than that which the Spartan-IIs would face many years later. Avery knew of the rebel threat. Though he believed in their cause, he also believed that the manner in which they tried to bring it about was immoral. So despite his Christian teachings, he chose to join the UNSC Marines. This is a notable contrast with John, who simply leaped into battle in faith that his superiors were undoubtedly correct that the rebels needed to be taken out. Avery climbed through the ranks and was selected by the Orion Project for participation in the Spartan-I program. The final choice, however, was his. He was recruited into the Spartan program, where he received augmentations to make him the best soldier he could be. After the Spartan-I program was disbanded, many of the Spartan-Is retired to start families. Avery, however, continued to fight in the war against the insurgents. He collected his share of psychological issues, but pushed them aside to do what he felt needed to be done. He continued to fight well into the Covenant War, retaining his fears, hopes, doubts, passions, and humor. What makes him human? A hero, in my mind, is about someone who overcomes great obstacles to do what must be done. This can be applied to both Avery Johnson and John 117 to a reasonable degree. However, Avery could have turned back at various points in his life, an option John never had. Obstacles aren't just about hostiles in your path, they can be doubts and temptations. John had the Spartan-II training, the armor, the power, but he never actually chose to fight. It just kind of happened to him. Avery may not have as much strength as his Spartan successor, but he ultimately fought harder. Therefore, I would have to say, out of the two of them, Avery Johnson is the hero of the story.
They ennobled all of us, and they shall not be forgotten.